Welcome to my talk, Hitchhiker's Guide to OSINT. We're going to be covering like the basics, just generic stuff for OSINT. In case you don't know, OSINT is open source intelligence. It's pretty much any information that's gathered from public knowledge, publicly available resources. Most commonly, you'll see it from social media like Facebook, TikTok, um, but you can also pull stuff from things like Wikimapia. I think it's Wikimapia. That's how you pronounce that. But it's all just crowdsourced data and it's posted publicly. Anybody can access it for super useful. And for social media accounts, a lot of people will post images. You might have military members posting pictures of places around their military base that can lead to open source intelligence for stuff like military work. There's tons of different categories for OSINT, but some of the main ones that we'll be covering are geospatial intelligence, GeoInt. That's kind of like the intelligence gathered in the physical world around us, and also geographical features, as the name implies. Social media intelligence, also known as SOCMINT. That's pulling things from TikTok, from Facebook, Twitter, all of those good social medias. And then we have financial intelligence. We won't be going over that in depth, but financial intelligence applies to things like cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Monero, and it also applies to things like anti-money laundering, discovery of funding terrorists and stuff like that. And then we also have operational security that we'll be covering in depth, as operational security is very important to OSINT and just the security realm in general. Of course, there's always more. We got signals intelligence, imagery intelligence, orbital intelligence, and then there's some stuff like anti-money laundering tying into financial intelligence, social engineering tying into human intelligence, rumor intelligence also kind of tying into human intelligence. So some of these categories just kind of mix and match with each other. And then important distinctions that you need to know are active versus passive, much like in pen testing. When you're gathering information, passive information, you're not interacting with the client at all. You're just gathering whatever information that they're willingly posting out there for the world to see. And then active investigations usually aren't recommended, as it could lead the subject to the awareness of the investigation. But it could be as simple as liking one of their photos, adding them as a friend, adding friends that they know as friends on social media. So a lot of that's more involved with like SOC accounts and stuff like that. So for social media intelligence, obviously there's some generic social media websites out there. Usernames and emails go a long way. So you could have a user using the same email across almost every single one of their social media sites. Even for stuff like their professional life too, they'll all use the same email. Usernames typically can be the same way, but a lot of usernames end up getting taken and their usernames may vary. But for the most part, the emails are the best way to go for finding users with social media. It's also the easiest way to find the subject's friends and hobbies. They'll only pretty much actively engage in stuff that they like, what content they're interested in. I don't know of anyone who would, actively join a, baking group if they've never, baked bread in their life, or if they're not interested in baking bread in their life. But yeah, it's a great way to find like their friends and stuff and to be able to figure out how they're interconnected and what social groups they're in. And because of this, it allows a wealth of information to be gathered for a subject when you're creating stuff like a dossier. during a single scope investigation, and then on a larger scale, um, you can be, you can do analysis on social trends, demographics, certain social media groups, and you can use that data for marketing. A lot of companies will use it for marketing, or um, some more malicious uses like APTs using them for disinformation campaigns. Um, so here's our social media intelligence scenario. We have this account here, Neopets Aren't Real, posting on, I think, Gab. And he is strictly keeping it um, to random things and random people. He's trying to keep this separated from his personal hobbies and his personal life. So this is kind of interesting when I came across testing this out. But Google, the handle that I had copied from right here, from this Neopets Aren't Real, and just Googling the handle, didn't return anything at all in Google. But in DuckDuckGo, it returned a Twitter account, but it still said that there's no results found. So not quite sure why that happens. It could just be the different the different search engines, but if anybody knows exactly why DuckDuckGo can find the Twitter account but will find no other results, let me know. That said, we found this Twitter account through that, and that was as simple as Googling it. Some searches are way more intense, but it turns out that this is the same username, and they're using this social media account for all professional interactions. So great success. We tied 2 accounts together just by their username. There's a lot of SOCMint resources, duck.com, which is what I use there, and then of course all of their search engines like Bing, Google, super useful. There's some stuff like reverse email lookups. This is a Discord Snowed timestamp thing. It basically just takes all the timestamps of messages and then converts them to UTC. You can compare like GitHub profiles if you come across 2 that you're sure run by the same person. And then there's just a list of other resources here that are across SOCMint. I have a ton more resources here, so if you're interested, just send me a message, and I have like 10 million resources on all of these things. So quick guide to GeoInt. We're going to go into geospatial intelligence here. Most common one is Google Maps, Apple Maps. SunCalc and Shadow Calculator are super useful for more advanced geospatial intelligence. They are also used frequently to identify locations of users who post photos on social media. That's probably the most common thing that you'll see it for. Where you'll see GeoInt used is, some person who's in the military takes, a selfie by a sign in their military base, and people can identify which military base that is based off of, the time. Or, someone's just posting a random picture of a city and asking, where am I? And then users will identify where they're at. It also helps identify food scarcity and natural disaster response. There's quite a few open source intelligence things like Open Weather and I think it's Finding Fruit or Falling Fruit. Falling Fruit. And both of those allow you to go into its open source, and it'll allow you to find food or places where you can gather public fruit and stuff like that. I know the city of Tempe in Arizona actually posts some stuff that, like, I think they label every single tree that you can eat or pick fruit from, which is pretty cool. Natural disaster response, obviously, super important too, just to make sure if there's missing people out there, especially during, hurricanes, tornadoes, using some of these tools can help identify where they're at faster. And it's also been used in the past to locate terrorist operating bases from public forums. I can only confirm one time where this was actually effective, but it has been known for people to publicly identify things like ISIS training operating bases from, just their videos where they're posting, multiple training videos from a location. And public users will try and identify that so that they can relay that to people who can actually take care of anti-terrorism. Really cool shit. So here's our scenario. So you guys can interact here, open mic. But what pops out to you here about this photo? Like, what features do you see in this photo that would instantly give something away?
Lots of water and like mountains, I guess.
Okay.
I think too, just that body of water near the mountain on the left. It's really unique, so that could be like a popular tourist attraction, or it would also be like really easy to see from something like Google Maps.
Okay. All right. Good guesses. Or well, good information. If you guys were to look at this picture, what country or region would come to your mind just from looking at
Like Iceland.
it? Iceland. Okay.
I'm gonna say New Zealand.
New Zealand. That's also a good guess. So you guys, have you guys ever taken like you guys took geography in like middle school? Do you guys remember that map with like all the little land formations? Like, it has like plateaus, like glaciers, and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that picture, or like with those formations, some of the key things that I might add to that are the mountains in the lake is really good. Also, this unique lake right here really helps identify it. But also, so this is pretty much all sea. So we could pretty much guess that this is somewhere on the coast, unless that's a really big lake. Uh, but I don't know if any lakes that are that size. So the other thing is that these are all fjords. So there's a couple of limited places where fjords will appear because they're high and then they drop drastically down to the water. Um, there's also a city right here which will help us identify on Google Maps or whatever we're using. Especially this like land bridge here between these islands is really unique and can kind of pop out. So using this information, we could Google like countries with fjords or popular countries with fjords, and most likely I would start there. Um, and sorry, the I guess I missed the I forgot to give the scenario, but basically, let's say that our friend is hiking and he sends us a picture like 2 hours before he goes missing, and this is the picture that he sent. So um, they don't know where the last known location of the person is. They just know that they're missing. So to identify it, we're trying to find where they're at in this picture. So using this, I would probably search for, and this seems really low effort, but searching for things like fjords or countries with fjords, and then returning those results. And also, since there's a city or village here, I would also be searching for that information. So we came across. I did a little bit of a search here. I cut it down for this, but we ended up going to Norway because Norway has a ton of fjords, and they have a ton of cities and that are on the coast as well. And I think this was like the 20th result just clicking and going to Google Maps. We had found rain, which turned out to have that unique lake right there, and then the fjords with and the coastal thing with the bridge as well. Sorry. So from there, we could probably identify that the user is on the ridge over here. Looking over this whole city, and this is just a spin up in Google Maps. The actual picture is a panoramic photo, so I think it distorts the image around the edges, which is why. And also, I couldn't get like the perfect angle from Google Maps. It can only go zoom in so close. So that was probably the best mock-up that we could get, and we could probably identify the users along this ridge around in this red dot. And then also, using a topographic map, we could identify it through Google Maps or Open Topography. So here's a list of GeoInt resources that we can use. Digital Globe is now, I think they're relabeled as a Maxar, but this URL still works for archived satellite images. Sun Calculator is super useful if the sun's out and you can't identify any of the geography around a place. You can use this with a protractor to identify if you have the time of the photo, a relevant shadow that you can measure with a protractor, and then you have Sun Calculator, you can pretty much determine where someone is. Falling fruit, again, as I was saying, super useful for open sourced arbitrary, I think is how you pronounce that, uses, like, picking fruit. And then this one's kind of funny. I know where your cat lives. This isn't really super useful, I guess, but if you go here, there's just a whole bunch of cats with their geographical locations where people have taken pictures of them. And then open weather maps, super useful for finding out if you think that there's a missing person during an investigation and you need to, let's say that it's time sensitive, or you need to know what the weather's going to look like during the investigation, you can use open weather map. So with that, we'll switch over to financial intelligence, using things like Bitcoin, utilizing the blockchain, and then still using stuff like Swift. You can add to investigations, but often I see financial intelligence being used by law enforcement more than anything just to identify money laundering and terrorist funding. There's also, a ton of cryptocurrencies have been, adapted into this kind of work because of open ledgers. And even, I think Monero has a couple of tools that can help you identify, or there's tools out there for Monero that can help identify or lead to this kind of investigation. And one of the problems with financial intelligence, I think, is that a lot of information, or like initial information that's used in some of these resources, is provided by banks through suspicious activity reports, and sadly suspicious activity reports are confidential, so it's not very open access. But there are some resources if you're doing things like financial investigations, like blockchain explorers, Monero chains, either chains, and then you have some stuff that if you're looking into a nonprofit organization, stuff like Open 990 is super useful. Credit card checker, routing number, and like IBAN checker, most of those three are going to be stuff that's after the suspicious activity reports are submitted. And then things like Know Your Country. This gives you a report of all of the anti-money laundering reports that they have. So pretty interesting to go through. I sadly don't have a scenario for this intelligence work, but hopefully soon. And then lastly, we have operational security. It's definitely used by investigators to prevent discovery. It's also used by criminals. It's used by pretty much everyone. So Definitely get comfortable with operational security. It just helps greatly, especially if you're doing open source intelligence investigations. You don't want to be caught by the person that you're trying to investigate. It would make things a lot harder. So, with that, you would be creating things like sock puppet accounts, which are uh, accounts that are created just to interact with the target. I would say your best bet is to make a sock puppet account over the course of a couple months where you're posting regularly with it so it looks like a legitimate account and not just some sham bot account. So when you go to add someone or interact with them, it allows you to build a rapport and allow them to add you as a friend or have a higher chance of that. It's also counterintuitive to convenience. It is not convenient to, build a separate account from, one that you're using every day, but it is important for investigations like this. So here's our operational security scenario. You ate all of the chicken tendies and your mom's not home, so you got to go out of your basement and you got to go to the grocery store to buy chicken tendies. But you don't want Big Brother 1984 to find out that you're buying chicken tendies. So what are some operational security things that you might do to make sure that Big Brother doesn't find out that you're buying tendies?
You might go send your friend to go get chicken tendies for you.
Smart. Okay. Let's say that you don't have any friends.
What if I have Postmates?
All right. Okay, fair. Okay, so Postmates. How would you pay for that Postmates?
I guess you could use what was it? One of those like card spoofers where you can
Privacy.com.
yeah, privacy.com. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you something like that.
All right. Got it. That's
Or
a
gift
pretty good.
cards.
That's a pretty good different scenario. That's a pretty good answer. Different from what I was gonna say for the scenario, but that is good. I do like that.
Here's what I'm doing. I'm going in with a COVID mask and some shades and a nice hat to cover my hair, and I'm bringing nothing but cash. So
Okay.
at least there's no digital proof that I was there. You can't properly identify my face, so even if you think it's me, I don't think the evidence would hold up that you could prove it's me without any facial recognition.
Good. All right. Cool. Yeah. So for this OPSEC scenario, yeah, pretty much glasses. These are reflecticals. I don't know if you guys have seen them. They're kind of cool. They mess with IR cameras. So if you like messing with IR cameras and looking like cool with sunglasses, do that. Also, yeah, masks like this. I don't think this is actually effective, but there are some patterns that are way more effective for facial recognition cameras that'll mess it up. But yeah, let's say that you could have a driver's license, but if you do have a driver's license in a car, it might be wiser to take a bike because a lot of modern day cars will have GPSs installed in them. Yeah, no credit or debit cards at all. Just use cash only. Other people have mentioned, you could throw a rock in one of your shoes so that it, messes up your gait because there's starting to become gait recognition technology that's being put out there on a wider scale. So with all of that, we do get our attendees. It's all good. But there are some other stuff other than just physical operational security, things like 10-minute mail, super useful for creating sock puppet accounts. I use it all the time. Using stuff like Tor or proxy chaining stuff is super useful as well. This Anonymous Planet thing is actually Hitchhikers' Guide to Online Anonymity, and it's very similar to the Smart Girl's Guide to Privacy. But both have good information, so I would read through them. Fake identity generators, if you're trying to, create a persona, I would highly recommend that. And then there's also, I think this is the Navy's PDF, but this is a book on their operational security guides for generic military members. So, pretty cool stuff. There's always more resources out there for operational security. So now the final question is, how do I get good? There's tons of challenges out there. There's, Hack the Boxes, OSINT challenges. There's these two Twitter users, Quiz Time, which I think only posts pictures, and you have to use geospatial intelligence to identify where they're at. And then there's OSINT Dojo, which retweets, I think, almost all of Quiz Time stuff and additional challenges. So I would follow both of them if you're interested in practicing. Also, Trace Labs Missing Person CTF is amazing experience for doing OSINT. It is definitely challenging at times, but it can be good experience for more real world open source intelligence stuff. And then, of course, there's always GeoGuessr. That's a very popular one. The only problem with it is that it's more of a pay-to-play model now. So you can still play it, but its quality has gone down if you're not paying for GeoGuessr. And then read the OSINT blog. The person who had posted that, great person, really knowledgeable information. I would highly recommend to give that a read. So, yeah. Any questions? No? All right. Cool. I will